is all that's left of the ejector. This is the new ejector. It's a new manufactured part, but the catch is that it's pretty much universal. It will fit a bunch of different guns, and it is not specifically designed for this gun. It's all that's available. What I've done is I've had to ream out the hole that it goes into. It's pretty damaged. You can look down underneath there and see some of the scoring down in that channel, and that is where this goes. I'm actually going to have to ream it some more, but you all can see, you see how small, how narrow that channel is down there, the gap in the barrel? Look at the size of the ejector in reference to that. You can see there behind there how small that is compared to this ejector. So what I'm going to have to do is custom machine that, or I'll actually, probably in this no more than it is, I'll just grind it to fit. So what we'll do, and you'll see here, this is still pretty tight. I'm going to have to, I got to get a different reamer of a different size, go up a couple thousandths on my reamer size, make sure that I've got it reamed where it's going to, right now, I mean, yeah, it'll go in there, but it wouldn't operate smoothly. So what I'll do is I'm going to hit this with some Dicam, and I'll scribe where I need to grind to. Dicam. First time I ever heard someone talk about Dicam, I thought they were saying dike, like dike them, like to dike them. I was thinking, man, what are you guys talking about? What's it mean to be diked? I don't want to know. Come to think of it, just don't tell me. Now once I get that cut down to the right size, the right width, I'm going to have to put a channel in it so it will, excuse the shakiness there, because this shotgun shell's got to be able to drop down in there, and you see the channel, the groove, the rim of that shotgun shell sits in. Well, this has got to match that so it can sit flush in there, because that will actually sit underneath the rim of this shotgun shell while it's in there. And so a good bit of hand fitting that has to be done here. If I had jigs and proper, you know, tooling on the mill and all that stuff, I did a bunch of these, wouldn't be a big deal, but since I'm going to do it all by hand, it'll be a little bit involved. Not too bad though. But anyways, with that Dicam, once it's dry, I'm just going to go in there by hand and I'll make my marks. I don't have a scribe handy, so I'll just use this razor blade. Right about there. Now I've just got some witness marks, and I'll square those off and get it to zoom in there. So I put a mark there and a mark there. That gives me a general idea. I'll measure. I'll just go ahead and pull these out now. What we'll do now, I'm sorry about all the shakiness. I'm trying to hold it where you guys can see. try and do this where you all can see, but it's going to be hard to. Thing to do is going to be measured there and measure down here on the bottom and see if we've got a little bit of a taper. Either way, I'll grind this down just on the outside of those two marks, square, and then the rest will be just hand fit process elimination, because I'm, just from looking at it and some preliminary measurements, this hole is not centered in between there. That's one of the things about some of these older guns. It's one thing if you can have the best equipment in the world, you can have 14 axis mills. There's not really such thing, but you can have elaborate machining stuff, and it won't do shit for you if you're dealing with a gun like this, where nothing is concentric. It's not on a center axis. This was done by hand or someone on a hand machine, and so jobs like this, a lot of times, the only way they can be done is by hand. And that's what we're going to do here. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to measure where my mark is. I'm about 76 there. 76. I don't know if you can see the marks I just scribed on there. And we'll grind to just on the outside of those. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to see how well they file. If it'll file nice and easy, that's what we'll do, is just file it by hand. Sometimes that doesn't work too good. Well, here. See where I stopped there, just short of it. And I'll switch to a double cut file. Cuts a little faster. You see there, we definitely narrowed it down a good bit. use that just to make sure the bottom's fairly level. Alright, you can see here, after filing it to the marks that I set forth, and then I tested it, and then I tapered it on the top edges of each side there. Gave it a little taper there and a little taper there, just to check my sizing. That's what I've got so far. So that's pretty good for just preliminarily. Now this part down here is going to have to be angled to help it to close it and push against the spring whenever the breech is closed. We'll worry about that in a little bit. There. So after filing it again, now it sits flush. Now the next two things that I've got to worry about are going to be matching the contour of that groove right there and getting my angle right here to make it close in the breech and allow it to lock. Part of what I'm going to do to get the height of this down, instead of grinding, I'm going to use my ball peen hammer and peen it down. Peen. That'll end up making it stronger than if I just was to grind on it. File the back side a little bit. Now we'll test it. There you can see they did protrude up pretty far, but by taking that and just peening it, instead of grinding it and reducing metal, I'm compressing that metal in together, mushrooming it out to where it fills in the gaps from filing, and getting it the size I want all in one. You don't have to be in any hurry to do it. You can just take your time. Now I have to file that back side down to allow it to fit in there all the way. I'm not worried about only filing in one direction for this. Let's see how it fits. Looking pretty good. You need to come down on this left side just a little bit, right over here. Slowly getting there. I'm gonna move it a hair. Now we'll look into cleaning that up a little bit better. And the thing to check for here is look and see how far that shell protrudes. With your ejector in there, and look and see. Now you see right there, see it actually sits in farther without the ejector. So we need to look at addressing that. Yep, got a little bit more grinding to do. Well, hopefully this will be the final rendition. Yes, it is a live shell. Whoa! And that's good enough for me. That'll loosen up a good bit here, just with getting it seated in and everything. And so, for all practical purposes, that part is done. Now, I just need to shape the bottom so whenever it closes, it will mash it down. And I'm going to do that by starting out by just giving it a bevel. And then it'll be a process elimination because I don't have the old one, that part to go by. I'll just have to bevel it and put the gun together, see if it works, and continue to file on it until I get it right. You can see here I'm filing this bottom edge down so it will clear the lock that goes right here. We got this back together. Preliminary test fitting seems to be going just fine. It does catch down there. So we'll see how it does. You can see here where I'm continuing to adjust this and file it. Right now I'm putting a round bevel on it so it will clear the latch. Just doing this with a single cut bastard file. And that is modeling clay that I've got pressed around there to keep it from singing while I'm filing on it. Like that. There we go. Modeling clay's cheap. I mean, it doesn't matter. Oh, I got metal flakes in it. Doesn't matter. Now I'm going to hit this with the wire brush on the grinder. Just smooth it all out and we'll test it out again. That's after hitting it with the brush. Now we'll try it. There's the extractor there. does close. It does open back up. Now what I'm going to do here is cock the hammer. I want to make sure that this time when I close it, the firing pin is sticking out there. You see it in there? And the reason is because you want to make sure that your ejector is going to either push the firing pin back in or at least not cause it problems. Ideally, it will push it back in so it doesn't interfere with the shell coming down there. And it is doing that. Everything appears to be just fine. So now I'm going to pull it back out and glue it and put it together once and for all. Alright, what I'm going to be doing here for this part, I'm actually going to be using the Birchwood Casey Plum Brown, Barrel Brown. Use some of their cleaner degreaser. Doesn't have to be their cleaner degreaser. There's any number of cleaners and degreasers out there that work just fine. So it just so happens to be that that's what I'm going to use right now. It actually comes with a little sponge, but again, you can use whatever you want. And it's been sanded to the finish that I'm looking for. I'm not trying to get it, I don't want all of the imperfections out of this. I want it to have some striations and just some impurities, and not impurities, but just imperfections. Because the gun that it's going on is not pristine. And so I just want to make sure that you've got this scrubbed good and clean. Oils, greases, anything like that that's on it, got to get them off there. We'll let it sit and work for a few, and we'll come back to it and we'll rinse it in some water and move on to the next step. Come back to it, it's been sitting there for a minute, a little bit of water in there just to rinse it. If you got running water, you can rinse it in flowing water. I don't have flowing water out here, so I just use, that's actually distilled water. Doesn't have to be, but anytime that I'm messing with coatings and stuff, I prefer to use distilled water. Now, this is a heat process, and so what I'm going to do here is clean off a spot to throw the heat to it, and get some pliers. Alright, that's our pliers we're going to use. Now what you do is you heat up your part to about 300 degrees, a little under, right at. And then while it's sizzling hot, you rub the brown all over it. I got it a little over 300 degrees, I believe. It was starting to turn colors on its own. MAP gas will do that for sure. And you see, it rusted basically is what it looks like. It looks like it's just a quick heavy rust. And that's basically what you're doing here, is you're doing a form of rust browning, bluing. Those terms can be used interchangeably. Now, I'll rinse it off. And I'm going to repeat. So what I'm going to try and do here, see if I can just heat it while it's down on the table. Let me move the camera for a second. Might be able to do that. Brown my table real good. And it's got, I mean, you want to rinse it off in between your cycles. You want to take a little steel wool or something, you can. Kind of scrub it some. We'll leave it at that, and I'm going to coat it. I'll dry it off, and I'm going to coat it with some water displacing oil. That could be WD-40 if you need. Oil it, because it will do a hard rust if you're not careful. And treat it, that way it won't corrode. And once we've done that, we'll see what kind of color it gives us. What I usually do after I've blued something or been working on it, I want to coat it with some oil. I have this container that's just got some paper towels in the bottom. You can see it's saturated, and I always try and coat anything with oil or spray it down while it's in here. That way I'm catching all the excess. If I need to, I can take something like, say, these pliers here. I can dab a screw or something like that down there on that, and now it's coated. So I'm saving a bunch of the excess spray. If I want to take this and roll it, I can. You know, like if you got a pin or something. Keeps everything from being so messy. The majority of it, what I've been using is Barricade. What I just sprayed on this is some of the Q20 blue. This is a T&E gun lube, and this other, the Black Diamond. Q20 sent these to me to test and evaluate, actually in response to my affinity for frog lube. And I'm finding that it's not so much in competition with frog lube. It can be used in conjunction with frog lube. So anyways, I just wanted to show you all what I'm doing there, and maybe you'll see this on a tip coming up. Here's our part finalized. Went ahead and browned the inside of the barrel just to get that where it looks a little better. Run that in there. Now what we'll do is push this in, and that'll go ahead and catch it, and then we'll put our that last pin in. Take my hat off so it doesn't get in the way. There we go. Now that we've got that through there, we can drive this pin through to replace that. Go. Put a touch of wicking grade on each side there. A touch, Lord, that was more than a touch, wasn't it? Now the only thing you have to watch out for with the wicking grade is that it'll wick into your internal part and seize it in there. And that's just something that, you know, it can be broke free. It's not a mechanical lock, so you know, you can break it free, but it's just something you got to watch for. Something that I don't like, and I've not seen this before, you know, maybe on some of these older type shotguns and stuff, and some of the older repairs, this is more common, but it appears to me that this has been epoxied on, this lug. Maybe I'm wrong, but it seems that maybe it was brazed and then epoxied, or just epoxied. I'm not going to touch it, I'm not going to do anything with it, but I don't know. Seems a little fishy. Maybe I'm wrong and just ignorant to the fact, which is not a, you know, I'm not above being ignorant to something. This, I actually took it back apart because now that I have it back together, I'm finding another wear spot. I don't know if you can see it right there, that little divot. That's from the firing pin catching on it whenever I was going to open it. And so I'm going to file that and give it a bevel, kind of to funnel that firing pin into the groove when it's going past it this way, and then we'll rebrown it, recoat it with oil, and put it back together again. There we go. Little divot in there now. Put it together. Zoom in down here a little. There we go. Try and get it on camera. See if I can give you guys a better view there. There's that. Let me come down. Alright, firing pins out. And now that firing pin is pushed out a good ways, you'll see there. I don't know how much you guys can see. Sorry for all the shakiness. Anyways, it hits that groove and clears. Now, when we open it up, can you see if you guys can see in there? Well, either way, that groove's doing its job. Just wasted a whole bunch of your time and my time trying to show you that. Oh well. I need a camera crew. Anybody that lives around Knoxville, Tennessee that wants to work for free on a moment's notice, anytime, let me know. Put you to work filming. Did I say mermaids? I sound like Medea. And a mermaid's near dish. Hello. Well, anyways, that's the BayState H&R 12 gauge. New ejector on it, and I say we throw a shell in it, see if we can't blow a hole in the wall here. That works just fine. Looks like we may need to work on our spring tension just a hair. It doesn't seem like it's got too much oomph. Yeah, it's moving it out, but not much. I don't know. I'm going to look and see if it seems like it's supposed to move a little farther or not. And I might have to do a little tuning.